Okay, everybody, thank you for joining the Top Rig Fishing Show. Believe it or not, Jim and I just finished 45 minutes of recording the show only to find out that we didn't have any audio. So I am going to record tonight's show on my own. I'm recording show number 2 the second time, and doing that just because we had some technical difficulties. I'm still working through this new format, new tools. So I'll bring back some of the content that I discussed with Jim for this show, and then Jim will do another recorded show with me sometime soon. So I'll start off with what's been going on with me. It's been sort of slow fishing over the past few weeks. Some of that had to do with just busy with work and family, but we also had a lot of storms come through this area. If you've been watching the weather lately, it seems like week after week we get these sort of nasty storm fronts that have been coming through, causing a lot of tornadoes. So I want to say last month we had a major tornado that hit Griffin, which is about 15 to 25 minutes just south of us here. And then I think it was last week we had another tornado hit LaGrange, and that is right next to West Point Lake. It's been sort of rough fishing. I went out last week to try and go fishing after we actually had tornado sirens going off right here near our house. My wife and family all went down to the basement while I was out going to buy bait. I didn't know that there was a tornado warning, so I was out buying bait, and it got really nasty driving on the way to get the bait. My wife called and let me know, hey, we're under a tornado warning, but it was sort of too late for me at that point. So anyhow, got home. Everyone was safe. The weather went through. The sun came out, and tried to get on the lake, but the fish just couldn't be found anywhere. Of course, the wind was gusting up to 40 miles an hour. The water visibility was really bad. We had a lot of rain come through, and like I said, the wind was just kicking everything up. So fish did not want to bite last week. I will be making a video from a week before. I did get out on Lake Horton. I did start to see some fish on beds. In fact, I saw one tail coming out of the water. It was huge. I mean, it must have been, I can guess, at least a 10-pound bass. It was monstrous. I threw a couple lures over in its direction, but it just didn't want to pick up anything. So I'll share that video in a little bit. You'll see the tail coming out of the water. I don't get a real good shot of it, but you see it in a corner. I did catch a couple fish that day, so I'll share that. I also just joined the American Bass Angler Association, which is a nationwide bass club that sponsors a lot of tournaments, several in this area. I believe they do one in Lake Lanier. They have one in West Point Lake, which is the closest large lake to me. So I hope to start getting involved in some of those tournaments. We'll see if we can't get Jim up here to join me for some of those tournaments as well. I actually bought this shirt here, so let me stand up so you can see it. So there you go. Got myself a little fishing jersey, something to get started with for when I want to get out on West Point for a tournament. And it's got my Retsky. That's my nickname. I've been called that since I was young. It's got my nickname there, and I'll wear this at least for the first couple tournaments until maybe I get an actual tournament shirt. We'll see how that goes. What else? I did want to talk about some of the local lakes. So I've had this discussion with a couple people now. One of the largest challenges that I have in this area is that all of these local lakes are reservoirs, water reservoirs for the local towns. So they do not allow gas motors, and that makes it really challenging when you're having a rough day of fishing to move around. You get maybe one or two guesses at where the fish might be, and by the time you get over there, you get a couple hours of fishing, and hopefully you made a good guess. Otherwise, it was a long day of fishing and not catching. So we're still learning, finding better ways to do it, and that brings me to my first share. So let me get that queued up here. All right, this is Mikey Balls. He is one of my YouTube bass specialists. He's got a YouTube channel. He's got a lot of great videos. I'll link his videos in the comments of this video. Please go over to his channel, like and subscribe. And he's got a lot of great tips if you were a bass angler. So let me start with what he had to talk about.
Todd Castledine put out an absolutely awesome video. Why do the pros catch more fish on your local lakes? And he absolutely nailed it, dude. Go check that video out. I'll put a link to it in the card so you guys can go check it out. But I wanted to throw in my 2 cents because it really hit home for me. And it's something that I've been experiencing, and I think it's something we all experience, especially in spring. Like 2 weeks ago or so, I was catching a ton of fish, pre-spawn, chatterbaits. You saw the mini chatterbait videos, hard baits, frit side, spinner bait, even an A-rig and a swim bait. These fish were very pre-spawn. They were very setting up and even staging mid-depths, 4 to 8, 5 to 8, maybe down even to like 3 to 5,
By the way, Mike, he's been killing the bass. I believe he's down in Lake Okeechobee, so he goes back and forth. This time of year, he'll be on Lake Okeechobee, just killing the slobs down there. I think the last picture I saw from him was a 10.5 pounder, and they're just coming in left and right. So he's doing something right down there, but then he moved. You'll see he talks about it here in this video. I think he moved 4 years ago to Alabama. So he's not too far from me, really. It'd be great if I could connect with him sometime, get out on the boat with him, and actually do some fishing. Maybe we'll see if we can arrange that somehow. But yeah, he fishes the Alabama area. A lot of great lakes to fish over there. Maybe I'll take my boat over that way and do a fishing tour. Otherwise, I've got to drive. It's about maybe an hour and 15 minutes to get to West Point Lake and actually get to a lake where you can crank up the motor and get to some of those fishing areas a little bit quicker.
And then all of a sudden, in a 24-hour period, that bite absolutely disappeared. And I kind of consider myself sort of fresh to the area. I moved to North Alabama, like 4 years ago. So I'm still learning because I really try to, I go to Smith Lake, I go to Gunnersville, I go to Wilson, I go to Pickaway, really spread myself out to try to get a feel of what's going on. And it definitely slows down the learning process, but in a way that sort of ignorance that I have helps, because I don't have many preconceived notions either, and I also know my strengths. And one of my biggest strengths is sight fishing. I really love sight fishing. Coming from Florida, we do a ton of sight fishing, but the sight fishing is really an expanded time of year. Basically, I always tell everybody who asks me about Florida, the fish have 2 seasons in Florida, spawning and not spawning. So it's pretty straightforward. Whereas when you get into the more temperate climates like Alabama, like up north, it's very seasonal and you get hard transitions between the seasons. You always have fish dangling in certain seasonal patterns, but for the most part, things do change on a dime, and that's especially true in spring when you get that variable weather. So what actually happened to me, and has a lot to do with this guy right here, that's actually a boxer crawl. It's my buddy Jacob Wall's design, and he is actually some of the inspiration for this video as well. And I think one of the things the pros do, and I'm no #pro, I'm an angler, I love to fish, I get out as much as I can, but one thing that I've learned...
I said this with Jim earlier, he calls himself not a pro, but he can hang with the best of them. As far as I'm concerned, he gets out there, he actually does fish with a lot of the pros. And he's a great fisherman, does a great job of finding the bass and providing some great tips. So I don't quite agree with his comment there, but it's nice to see him humble.
from Jacob, and I'm starting to learn for myself, is the ability to transition on a dime. These fish do it. They'll go from doing one thing to the next with immediacy, within 2 hours, on the same day sometimes. And the one thing that I've noticed, especially in fishing a lot with Jacob, is his ability to transition and change what he's doing, change the entire mindset of the day's pattern or what we know thus far about the fishing and what's happened, literally like that. And that adaptability, I think, is key. And let me tell you a little story as to why it's so important and why it's such a hot topic for me right now. I was catching all those fish pre-spawn, mini chatterbait, fritz, whatever, hard baits, They're moving up. All of a sudden, one day, and what's funny is the weather didn't even change that dramatically, didn't get super warm or anything. It gradually kind of warmed up. I think one thing is we had slightly warmer nights, but all of a sudden these fish are gone, right? And I'm out there and on like stuff that I'm like, dude, there were tons of fish here. I was catching them, shooting videos, having a blast, getting tugged on, and they're gone. Like, what the hell happened? So one thing that I think that I struggle with is making that transition, because I'm trying to shoot videos for you guys, understand some patterns, go in depth into patterns, and it takes a lot of commitment to those patterns in order to shoot all the footage. And
Yeah, so I'm going to say here, completely agree with him. It's work to shift, to move to another location. You got to pack things up. You got to, crank the motor back up, move to another spot, get everything back out, get everything set up for recording. So it's a lot of work, and the same applies to ice fishing, maybe more so, because it's not just cranking up the motor. You're taking down your tent, you're turning off the heaters, you're basically literally taking everything down, packing it into a vehicle, moving across the lake. So a lot of work, but that hard work will pay off when you find the fish.
get the video that you need. So changing on a dime is difficult. And what I did is I'm like, you know what? If these fish were out, we've had halfway stable weather, maybe it's not super warm, I wonder if they moved up. So what I did is I literally went from fishing those outer depths to getting super skinny, like super duper skinny, like dirt skinny. Like the old ghost was kicking up dirt. And I didn't see anything for a little bit. I'm like, dude, they gotta be here. Started trolling, went into another creek. And then all of a sudden, sand spot, and there's males everywhere. Now what's really interesting about this too is it wasn't going off, it wasn't happening everywhere. I had to go find it because I knew something that I was doing was wrong. Like the fish that I was catching were gone. Something has changed. And I think that's one of the big things too that some of these pros do is they recognize something's different. And instead of it being in the back of your head like I think something's changed, it's something's different, I need to make a change. And so I committed to making that change, dude. And all of a sudden, there were bedfish everywhere. And then I started dialing it in. I'd get dirt shallow. I'd see guys fishing kind of at the mouths of pockets, casting around, catching one here or there. And I would literally, they probably thought it was a dick too, because I would go and around them with my trolling motor. I tried to be kind of subtle, but I'd go around them and I'd go another 100 yards back in, dude. And then all of a sudden, I'd drop my poles and I wouldn't leave for 45 minutes. And they were looking at me like I was absolutely crazy. And basically what I would find is pods of bedfish. It was those same pods of pre-spawn fish where you find them in a little group on, say, like a creek channel, on a ditch, maybe on some submerged grass, on a point or something. Literally that group had said, hey, our time has come. We need to transition and shift in and get on those beds. And dude, it was absolutely insane. When you'd find one, there was like 25 of them. Now, granted, when you'd see one, sometimes it's not always easy to see these fish. You had to be slow, subtle. We're actually going to do a little sight fishing video where I'm going to break down how you guys actually find, capture, and really trigger those bedfish to bite, because it is a tricky process. And when you do it right, it's some of the most fun one-on-one and big fish fishing that you can experience. But it really embodied exactly what Todd was talking about, more in a sort of specific manner. And it sort of embodied what Jacob always shows me, that ability to transition. It has a lot to do with not having preconceived notions, but it also has to do with, if not this, then this. Because the reality is, fishing isn't math. It's not linear. It's not, you can't go and do a bunch of math problems and come up with the pattern of the day. but there is some form and some structure to the way fish behave.
All right, so I'm going to argue just a little bit with that piece. Fish is very hard math is actually what I'm going to comment here. Um, my main line of work is the cancer industry, and I think I won't say there's commonality, but what you discover is that trying to diagnose cancer can be difficult. There's a lot of different variables to consider, just like fishing. And what has been extremely useful now in helping with diagnosis is the use of artificial intelligence. I wouldn't be surprised, in fact, it may be something I should start doing, is to start using machine learning to recognize patterns and find ways to improve fishing. I may actually start looking at that. That's not a bad idea, because it is a lot of different variables. Now, the problem is, can you input all of those variables into some program to crank you out the perfect bait or the perfect location? I don't know. I don't know if there's so many variables that you have to, in some cases, make a few guesses and assumptions. But I'm sure there's some things that could really help you improve finding fish. Everything plays into it. Time of year, weather, water clarity, color of the bait, what's running as far as what bait fish are in the local lake, everything. So I don't know if you can make an application to input enough triggers to give you a real way to focus in, but something worth investigating.
Have a seasonal pattern that generally holds true. There's nuances for each lake when it comes to depths, types of cover, water clarity, all those kinds of things, bait color. But the reality is they all follow a certain set of general rules, and those general rules dictate their location, and that can change. So for instance, like we're on Smith Lake, we're in the back of a pocket. This is a perfect spawning area. In Florida, those fish will spawn like right on the main lake on grass points and stuff like that, or on the grass edges, or just behind the grass line. You'll be right next to the main lake, waves rolling 3 foot, and there they are on a bed. So you have to sort of adapt that concept to each body of water, because each body of water in each region is different. But that ability to adapt, I really think sets, not only, we always talk about pros, hashtag pros, not even pros, but a good angler versus a great angler. That ability to adapt on the dime, to really make a change, it takes faith, it takes experience, and it takes a confident mindset in believing that you know what's going on, you know what can be going on, and you're willing to make that change and that transition because you're open-minded enough to nail that. But I just wanted to take a second because literally Todd embodied exactly what's happened to me over the past 2 weeks. I went from a pre-spawn pattern to all of a sudden, bang. I'm fishing beds, I'm seeing bed fish everywhere, and a lot of the bass boats, a lot of the anglers that I'm seeing are 100 yards outside me going, what is that guy doing? Way up there, dirt shallow. I'm literally kicking up dirt, getting shallow, and finding groups of beds that are literally the groups of pre-spawn fish that I was fishing 2 weeks earlier. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Shout out to Todd Castelline. Great video, man. Absolutely nailed it, dude. Very cool, very good presentation. Hope you guys enjoyed this little add-on. Hit that like and subscribe button if you did. It's right down there. Support grassroots fishing like me and Todd. We will see you next time back out on the water, talking fishing, hopefully talking about some spawning fish.
Yeah, support Mikey Balls. Support our channel. Like and subscribe if you haven't done it already. I got another Mikey Balls video I'll go through real quick. I'm going to probably
there are some days
skip ahead.
You're like, man,
let's skip right ahead to
gotta have
what he has
a
to say
Gambler
here.
Ace. That's a 3/16 classic spawning bait. And then right here, this is actually a Dirty Jigs Finesse swim jig, and I got a Komodo on the back of there. And these are what I'll pick up after I'm done using these guys. So I'll power fish my way through. Chatterbait, of course. I actually have on this guy, I got a darker one tied up. Burner worm, I can kind of slow reel that in the same place that I fish a chatterbait. And of course a 1/2 ounce Thunderhawk, and then a 3/4 ounce Nishine. So basically I'll cover water with those hard baits for the most part. I'm not actually always fishing them super fast either. You know, the water temps dropped a whole bunch, so I'm actually kind of slow rolling that chatterbait and slow rolling that trap over the grass. But then if I get a few bites, I'll drop my power poles, because we're fishing shallow water, it's the spawn, right? And that's when I'll pick these guys up. I can fish that finesse jig, that finesse swim jig, super shallow, super slow. I can drag around with these. And I even, in the back behind me, I got a big old glide bait. The water's super clear, so it's a perfect opportunity to bust out that glide bait and see if I can get a big one to commit. Fish on.
So I was just looking here. This was filmed 6 days ago. I don't know if the time of year matches, you know, when he filmed this. I'm looking right now here, trying to see if this was actually, oh no, so April 6th. Yeah, so 6 days ago. So yeah, I mean, there you go. There's some, you see his lineup of lures that he's going to go through. And he's got some great suggestions on what to use, what to go to, how to fish those lures. So some good tips and tricks.
Not a great big one, but we will take her. That skin of her teeth. On the old silent Thunderhawk. What the fuck, man? On the old, see the old lift and pull, baby. Get in here. I think I missed a bite before we caught this one too. Dropped them power poles. Hell, chatterdonker strikes again. Nice one. You know, I got kind of a regiment that I use when I'm fishing these grass flats, and I'll start off with like a chatterdonker like this, but then down here I got a white chatterdonker. I have a trap all the time that's a 1/2 ounce and a 3/4, and then I got a little burner worm, and then I'll pick up that glide from time to time just to kind of go through the motions. And it's funny how they'll react to different baits at different times. He was right next to the boat, dude, and he come off. We started off fishing a little bit shallower, and what I'm starting to find is I think the cold temperatures, you know, these fish, when it's spawn time, they move back and forth so much based upon the weather, and this is what really seems to be key. Just a little bit deeper grass. You see how it shows up on the 2D than there on the structure scan? A little bit deeper grass, like 5 to 6, but what's interesting is it comes up to like 4 feet, 3 feet in some places. So interestingly enough, the water's super clear, but it's kind of cloudy out. And what I'm starting to find is, let's see if I got any left. I think I did, yeah. You know, you would think they'd want like a bright colored chatterbait, but I can't catch any on like a white and chartreuse chatterbait, which is like standard operating procedure. Everything's been on this kind of green pumpkin, and then I'm putting as a trailer, you guys probably saw a video about this, I'm putting as a trailer just a little spunk shed. This is the chatterbait mini too, so I'm downsizing because I can't get them to eat a regular chatterbait. But it's just, it's dark and it's downsized. And sometimes I find when it's cloudy, going with, it's almost like night fishing. You go with like a darker bait, it's sort of counterintuitive, but that is what they're eating, dude. They will not look at a light colored chatterbait.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, I'm guessing he's in Alabama here. I'm not sure which lake he's on. But with all of the storms that have come through, you get just these cold fronts moving through. It was, I think, in the 80s last week here, and then the past few days we had frost warnings. So you know, and today we're back into the 70s. So there's just been a lot of swing. I would say that's probably one of the nice things about fishing Florida is, you know, you get, I would say, more constant temperature. I mean, they have their ups and downs too, but it doesn't swing quite as much. I'm still learning here. I've only been here in Georgia for a year, a little over a year and 4 months, 6 months maybe, and still learning my local lakes. Again, my problem is that these local lakes are reservoirs. I can't get to some of the spots as quick as I'd like to. I'm trying to talk my wife into finding a home closer to one of the larger lakes. We'll see if I can't figure out how to make that happen. But yeah, I mean, it's more work trying to figure it out when you have these weather patterns coming through.
Better one. Look how clear that water is, dude. Nice. Nice 3-pounder, old red-eye 3-pounder on the old chatter donker, guys. Ooh, ooh, ooh. It's a big male, too. That's kind of interesting. He's peeing. He freaking smoked it. Nice one. Seems like there's 2 retrieves with the old chatter donker that are working. One is straight out, super long cast, kind of rod at a 45, and just slow rolling it. Every once in a while, it'll kind of cling on the grass and I just pop it, but I'm trying not to move it like too erratically. It's almost like they want it like super consistent and they're just following it, and they just, I don't know, they close the deal at some point. Like it gets to them, it drives them like nuts enough where.
Yeah, it's interesting that he's saying that they're looking for consistency and speed. A lot of times it's the opposite. They'll follow it until suddenly it looks like that lure's going to dart away, and then they'll nab it. So in this case, a little bit different. Again, one more variable. You never know what they're looking for. You got to try everything.
Or they're just like, I'm just going to eat it. What the hell? Like that one, that was a terrible hook set. Oh, did he come off? Oh my God, that was such a bad hook set. Wow, that was ugly in all kinds of ugly ways. Well, yeah, so just reeling it. Yeah, proof of concept. The other way is slang. Let's see if I can catch her again. Man, that sucks.
All right, let's see what he does different here.
I kind of let it sink for a sec, but then I'm kind of yo-yoing it just with very slow reels. I'm not ripping it. I'm lifting it. It's probably the best way to describe. So like lift, let it kind of settle. And I'm never like giving it totally slack line. I'm kind of giving it like semi-taut line to let it kind of dangle down, because there is quite a bit of grass down there. So I don't want it to go too far down, but I just kind of yo-yo it up and down. That one breaks my heart. But those are the 2 retrieves that are working. It's either one or the other. The ripping it deal ain't cutting it, but just kind of slow reeling it and then doing that lift deal. That's a better one. See how he just sucked it up? That's what I use, this 7-foot medium rod. It's actually the same rod I use for topwater fishing. And I do it because they do that. They'll just snatch it. Oh, don't come off, don't come off. Nice. And they'll snatch it, and if that rod doesn't load up right, they're just gonna come off, dude, because he was barely hooked. See how his eyes are red? That means they're coming in to spawn. Pretty cool, huh? Back you go.
Yeah, they're barely snatching at that lure.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he's losing fish here, and that just they're hesitant
right on the lip,
or just nipping at that chatterbait.
Now he's running straight at the boat. Just another absolute chunk.
Yeah,
dude, when you find them, they're active. But finding them and getting them to bite is such a workout. Once again, that chatter bug, take it easy.
He's not doing bad.
This is bug. This is a nice golden bass, dude. It's the second one that dangled me like that. Felt him take it. They're running straight at the boat. That's a good one, dude. Get out of there. Dude, he freaking, there's a bunch out here. When they eat it, hey, take it easy on old bass fish. When they eat it and run straight at the boat on you like that, That means they're fighting for it. Yes, Buck. Buck, Bass is your friend. I bet you don't like it very much. Well, we just got a call from Swimsuit Girl, and we are going to have to wrap today up. She said, if you don't come home, I'm gonna sleep with him. And let me tell you, Bog may be cute, but he snores like a madman, dude. This is not ripping a chatterbait. This is something kind of different. It's a little more nuanced. It's a little more of a cold water technique, especially when you get those pre-spawn fish or those spawning fish that get kicked back. It's lifting it. You really aren't ripping it. You might have to pop it a few times to get grass or goo off of it, but you're just lifting it. It's almost kind of like spooning it a little bit, just a slight lift, and you kind of pause it. We talked about stalling a lipless. It's kind of like that, but in a much slower kind of fashion. But the big trick is I was using that mini chatterbait. Once again, I told you guys, I've been catching a bunch on it. It fishes like a trap, but it's a chatterbait. So it's all kinds of great things, right? Big key though is 7-foot medium rod. This is that Halo Rave. It's a 721, I believe, SLX, and 15-pound fluorocarbon. That medium rod, it just, when these fish aren't smoking it, like I didn't feel half the bites that I got. It was all about the rod loading up and just there being weight, much like a jig bite that we always talk about, you know, that sort of dead weight where that rod just loads up. And that was really key. Otherwise, you know, we did miss some fish. What was really weird is they're running at the boat. Like when you found them, they were just darting around. It was kind of crazy. But try yourself some chatterbait fishing with this mini chatterbait and try that lifting technique, especially if you have clear water, cold water, kind of pre-spawn fish or fish that are spawning that get knocked back kind of a step before they spawn. I don't want to sleep with Bog, so I'm gonna go see Swimsuit Girl. Please, if you don't mind, if you're watching this video, a lot of you guys aren't subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button right down there. I'll put links to all this stuff down.
All right, so there you go. And yeah, I know what it's like when your significant other wants you home. It's always fun to stay out there, but you gotta keep the family happy too. So I am going to stop it from here. I wish I had gotten the audio from the other video that Jim and I had done. We actually spent 40 minutes. We went through his cookbook, went through a special announcement. I'll save that to discuss on our next call, or our next show. So, you know, I made it a short one because this is my second show tonight. I've been doing this now for the past 3 hours, putting things together. So here you go. Hope you enjoy the show. Please like and subscribe and leave your comments, suggestions, and feedback in the comments below. All right. Thanks, everyone.